Welcome to the Taylor Made Tasty podcast. I'm Taylor, retired serial quitter turned goal boss coach, speaker, and consultant. I believe a beautiful life starts with a beautiful mindset. Join me as we amplify confidence, resilience, and actionable tools on the road to quit quitting on you and your vision. You are worthy of your goals, so let's go get there. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Taylor Made Tasty, the podcast. Today's episode is about redefining your setbacks. Being a goal-setting and goal-crushing badass comes with the guarantee that life is going to throw you some wild setbacks. But always knowing you hold the power of your very next choice to turn your setback into a comeback is where the magic lives. Let's talk about some actionable tools around redefining your setback with our special guest today. Kelly Butler is a comeback coach, empowering women to redefine their lives with purpose and joy after a major medical setback. Kelly's 18th month journey took her from a wheelchair and a walker to a first-time ultra-endurance athlete. She traversed Zion National Park, hiking 43 miles in 2 days against all odds. Kelly's personal struggles and lessons have placed her in a unique position to help others realize that although their physical bodies may have changed, who they are on the inside is perfect and waiting to be expressed. Kelly uses her corporate mentoring background of 20 years to lead women through their journey of rediscovery. Kelly lives in Roswell, Georgia, and she is the only girl in a house filled with 2 teenage boys, her husband, and her cute little doggy, Blue. Her southern accent gets stronger after a glass of wine, and she loves a good scone. Please welcome Kelly Butler, the comeback coach, to the podcast. If you're anything like me, after I have dinner, I get so excited about picking my dessert. Being on an intentional wellness journey means I choose wisely when it comes to my sweet treats. That's why I love grabbing a bag of Pink Panda candy. Each bag contains 50 grams of candy with only 2 grams of sugar. And at 90 calories, it fits perfectly with my wellness goals. Pink Panda candy offers 3 flavors: Astro Blasters, Treasure Chews, and my personal favorite, Peachy Hearts. They are vegan, gluten-free, and made in the US. Head to pinkpandacandy.com and use code TaylorPanda10 for 10% off. Pink Panda Candy. Don't sweat the sweet stuff. Hi, Kelly. I am so glad to have you on the show. Thank you for being here today.
Taylor, I have been looking forward to this all week, and you have got some of the most rock star listeners, and I'm really pumped to have this conversation with you.
Thank you so much. So as you can see, because we're on screen with each other, but not everyone else can see, is that I have this sign in my office with a saying that is printed and something I read every single day, and it is, "Your story is your superpower." So can you please share your superpower story with us as you went from a wheelchair to a walker to a first-time ultra endurance athlete? I mean, that is a lot.
It is a lot, and it was just as surprising to me as it might have been to you as you were reading it. But I'll start kind of at the beginning of this journey because it was so sudden and so unexpected, and it was one of those twists and turns in life that we just can't see coming. And for me, it started with a virus in March of 2020. And as I was recovering, I started to have this very profound weakness start in the bottom of my legs. And it was the oddest sensation, Taylor. Like it was a feeling of my legs were going to sort of give out from underneath me. And I really was like, man, I'm taking forever to recover from whatever this virus is. And so I made an appointment with a neurologist. But in the meantime, as I was waiting for that appointment, it just kept getting worse and worse. And that weakness was spreading upward through my body. And so it got to the point that I was dropping glasses because I could not grasp the cups any longer. And as I was moving around in my house, I was using the furniture to help me get around because I was needing to hold on. And I'll tell you, like, I've done a lot of mindset work and a lot of inner work, but right then I was in total denial. I really was. I was not ready to face the fact that I was losing control of my body. And so it got to where I needed to go to the emergency room because I was not able to stand up or walk. And then I was actually having trouble chewing and speaking. And so I had read a little bit about my symptoms, and I knew that it was a possibility that I would need to be intubated and that this weakness could cause my lungs to actually not know how to breathe on their own. And so I was rushed to the hospital, and at that time, it was right at the beginning of the pandemic, so nobody could be there with me. And so it was this very terrifying feeling that I've lost control over my body. I am by myself in the ER. I'm having spinal taps and I'm hours in this MRI machine. And I just, it was so much to digest. And so I was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is a pretty rare and very debilitating neurological disorder. And as I was laying in that hospital bed, I could barely move my arms. I could barely wiggle my toes. And I was given a walker to maybe take a few steps to the bathroom, but I just cannot explain how slow I was moving and the extreme fatigue that was coming over me both physically and cognitively. So at that moment, my doctors were telling me, Kelly, this could take you up to 3 years for you to recover. And so I knew that I couldn't go home because I have 17 stairs that lead upstairs to my bathtub. And of course, where I need to bathe and take care of myself. And so I was for a week in the hospital getting these infusions, donor infusions of plasma that helped to flush out the bad antibodies. And I was able to rehab at my mom's house for about a month. But during that time, I was racked with infections. I was missing my family. I was isolated because of lockdown. But I just set my sights on, trying to come home and knowing that I was facing, many, many months of grueling physical therapy and occupational therapy. And so this is what was happening to me physically. And that is what led me to really have to get creative about motivating myself and setting a goal that was larger than myself so that I could get through this season of life and what I was experiencing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I love what you said, because you were losing your independence in those moments where you were like in denial, right? I can hold this glass, I can walk up these stairs, I can do all these things. And that is, I think, I would imagine one of the hardest parts of it is that you can't do those simple little things for yourself. But now we're talking about going from holding a glass to really big goals that you set for yourself. So in my coaching, I preach a lot about resilience and the concept of holding up a mirror to your resilience, to look at what you've done, the proven data of what you've been through to guide you through your current situation or hardships, right? And so in what ways did resilience play into your recovery and you then going for a massive goal, which I know we're going to talk about. But how did resilience play into your recovery?
Yes. So when I think about resilience in my situation, and I know this could look different for everyone, with whatever your goal is, but for me, it was three main things that come to mind. And the first one was the power of visualization. And so I'm sure we'll get into it in a moment in terms of, where the goal was born from and kind of how that came to be. But I set this goal to hike this ultra marathon in Zion National Park, and I would envision myself crossing the finish line, and I envisioned it over and over and over and over every single day. And the thing was there was no physical evidence, right, that I was going to be able to do this because I could barely move. And I knew that the realistic goal for that day might be to sit up for 5 minutes, or to stand in the shower for 10 seconds, or to stay awake for longer than an hour and a half at a time. But those weren't very motivating to me. So that visualization allowed me to not only see it in my mind, but to feel it. And that feeling of it was what was such a critical driver for me and a motivator. And the second thing was humor. And I feel like humor in these situations of life, it is a way to kind of disassociate from what's happening to you and not let it be your identity, not define yourself by what you're experiencing in that moment. And so for me, I felt like I'd been transported into the body of a 95-year-old woman. So I said, you know what? This is my alter ego. I know she's here for a visit. Her name is Mildred. And, Mildred did things like, Mildred ate, bran flakes, and she rehabbed at her mother's house and sat outside and watched the birds as the, highlight of the day. And Mildred used a potty chair to sit down in the shower and all these kind of things, right? And so I knew this wasn't really me. And so when I would go onto Facebook, and I used Facebook to stay connected during that lockdown when I really was not able to be with anybody and I was craving that connection. But I would give updates on what Mildred was doing and talk about, that Mildred was here for a short stay. And it was a way for me to laugh about it because I knew that really wasn't who I am, and I chose it to see that way. And then really the third thing is the gratitude, because as I wasn't able to lift up my arms, like it was a huge day for me when I could lift up my arms to hug my husband. I mean, he's the love of my life. We've been together since high school, and that was a huge win for me to lift my arms and give him a hug. And so just trying to take a step back, and I know it sounds a little bit trite, but there were many, many things that I'd taken for granted about my body moving without me thinking about it. And so really taking the time to feel that gratitude and recognize those small wins, I think was really critical for my resilience as well.
Yeah, I love that. You basically just gave a roadmap of visualization. I teach about the alter ego as well. I love it. I wish I had been there for the Mildred days, because I think that is so, you created community around your hardship, right? I'm sure so many people looked forward to Mildred and her updates and creating, like you said, humor out of this. I mean, it's really that laugh to keep from crying idea of how can I lead through this the best way possible. And then, bringing that visualization, the humor, the alter ego, and then the gratitude, I think are like incredible points to make. And as we get into how you found out about this Zion challenge and all of that, I have a monthly membership group where I coach on a specific theme each month. And recently my coaching was about being rule breaking and being a rule breaking rebel, and the empowerment of breaking certain rules to live life on your own terms. So how did you decide, I'm going to break this rule? A month ago or a year ago, I couldn't grab this glass, and now I'm going to, it's hike 45 miles in Zion over 2 days. Yes?
Yes. Yes. So it was crazy, Taylor. I mean, I think by any stretch of the imagination. And so here I was 2 days out of the hospital. So literally, my mom was bathing me. I was like a baby. I mean, I needed full-time assistance and caregiving. And I was on Facebook and I had looked at this message that a friend of mine had shared with me, my friend Laura, and she said, "Hey, you should go check out Project Athena. Maybe this is something to aspire to. It's a great community." And so I had never heard of Project Athena. I went out to their website, and it is this amazing organization that empowers survivors to live their adventurous dreams. And so it is really a celebration of a comeback. And so you can apply for a grant if you've been through a major medical setback. And if you receive that grant, you're able to choose from four different physically challenging adventures in the US. And you go out and you train for it ahead of time virtually with a trainer. And then you actually celebrate this comeback and go on this journey together with other survivors and supporters. And so let me tell you why this was a ridiculous goal for me. So I have always been a little bit overweight most of my adult life. I have been infamous for sleeping through my workouts. My husband will attest to that. And I literally was faking sick in PE. I was getting a headache at the same time every day until the principal called my mom and they figured out that it was during PE class and I didn't want to sweat or be the center of attention. So for me to just
So
declare,
relatable.
yeah. So for me to declare that I'm going to now do this ultra endurance hike, I was not a quote unquote an athlete while as a well person, right? And then here I am barely able to move. I'm in a walker and wheelchair. So it was really crazy. But the thing was, I knew in my heart, right then, I knew that it was something that I had a burning desire to do. And you asked about kind of rule breaking, and sometimes you're breaking other people's rules, the rules of society, the rules of your family, your friends, and their expectations. And sometimes it's your own stupid rules that really you've set for yourself that are, in fact, limiting beliefs. They're not really rules because they're not true. And so I
Mhm.
could have said at that time, well, I'm not an athlete. I'm overweight. I can't stick with an exercise routine, right? These were all things that could have limited me. But instead, I focused on this burning desire of that goal. And so I think my family, I know they thought I was crazy. My neurologist laughed at me, literally laughed in the room with me. But I chose not to listen to
Ugh.
that, but instead to listen to my heart's desire.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, was that laugh motivation? Because that is what it's like, watch me, watch me.
It was totally fuel for me. And in fact, in my Facebook group this week, I'm giving a talk about the beauty of the underdog and how you can take
Mm.
this feedback from other people and you choose to accept it as criticism, as deflating feedback for you, or do you choose to have it be fuel on your fire? And it was 1,000%. It was like he poured gasoline on the fire. Okay. I mean, literally. But
Yeah.
I talked a little bit about gratitude, but when I set that goal, Taylor, I knew that I wanted to use it as an exercise in extreme gratitude for so many people who had stepped up to support me when I had to have the help. I had to. And so did my family. We all needed it. And so I decided that I was going to dedicate every mile of that hike to somebody who had uplifted me. And so
Oh,
I said to myself when the neurologist laughed, it was the most joyous letter, call, email that I sent the week before I left for Zion, that I could write him a letter and inform him that
mm-hmm.
since I had last been in his office, that I'd hiked 500 miles and that I dedicated a mile to him. And that is
Oh,
how I wanted to do it.
I love that. I love that. I could just tell what a big heart you have from that. it's a little jab, but mainly mainly coming from a good place. I love
Let me
it.
tell you, it felt good. It did feel really good.
Yeah. Okay, so along that same line, the empowerment of breaking certain rules to live life on our own terms. In many ways, I feel like you've done that with redefining who you are. So, can you explain how you teach to redefine yourself versus just recovering?
Yes. And this is something that I feel so strongly about as a difference. It's not only a difference in the words that we use, it's a difference in the entire mindset and perspective. But I really actually dislike the word recovery. And I know that sounds strange because it's a word that's most often used when you're talking about someone who's had a major medical setback of some kind and you're talking about their healing process. But if you think about it, when something like this happens, and I'll equate it to anything else, maybe you've had some sort of a trauma occur in your life, you've had some sort of a devastating event happen that was unexpected, or a medical setback. When you talk about the word recover, that is implying that you are trying to go back to what you were before. And I hear the words all the time, I just want to feel like my old self. Or you might have well-meaning friends say things like, you're going to be back to your old self in no time. But I think what people don't realize is that these experiences change you at your core level. They change how you look at the world. You are a different person. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a beautiful thing because we are all wired to evolve and change the entire time that we're here on this earth. So I dislike the word recover because it implies that we're going backwards. And so what I teach is this idea of redefining and renewing to start anew. And I just love this quote from Carl Jung that I reference all the time. And he said, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. And so it really is this premise, and this is how I help my clients come back from a major medical setback in mind, body, and spirit. It is not about the recovery of the physical body. It is about understanding that your body is an instrument of your mind and that you get to choose, no matter if your body is very different from how it used to be, you get to choose who you become from this day forward. And that looks very different than who you were before. And there's a lot of beauty in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree that making that choice is the hardest step, right? Because so often, as you spoke about, we're looking at the past. Oh, I want to, and with so many goals, I want to look that way again. I want to have that amount of money in my savings again. I want to live in that house again. Like so many things we're looking at the past as opposed to, can we make the choice to set a goal to not only feel that way again, look that way again, have that thing again, but even stronger and with a better mindset than we did in the past, right? So I think that's really powerful. And I like to be really open about the hurdles of life that, I say the world will give you the BS on a silver platter every day if it wants to. And that getting to a goal in a straight line without any struggles is a fantasy. So, on the hardest days of your journey to redefining yourself, what are some of the things that you would say to yourself that would allow you to come back? Because we know that this is a great conversation because there's been lots of healing, but for people that are in those moments, that are in their hardship right now, what are some of the things that you would say to yourself, or perhaps actions you would allow yourself to take to to the empowerment of your comeback.
Absolutely. And first of all, I would love to say what, I'll share in just a moment, kind of the things that I was saying to myself and what I needed during those really dark moments. But I can relate to those who are on an up and down journey. And I had two really, there were kind of, I'll call them sub setbacks, right? I mean, the big setback was getting diagnosed with GBS, but I had another major setback where I relapsed. And so I was first diagnosed in April, and then in September, after I was walking independently and had made so much progress, I relapsed and I again lost the ability to walk on my own. Had to go back to the hospital for another week, and then had to go back into physical therapy that next week and muster up the mental fortitude to learn how to walk again. And so that was a major fear for me, a relapse, and it happened. And then in December of that year, I got word that I was going to be losing my job. And this wasn't a job, it was a 20-year career at a Fortune 100 tech company that I had built since I graduated from college. And I was also the primary breadwinner in my house. So to find out that news when I wasn't yet fully recovered and physically not able to take on another full-time corporate job, you want to talk about some setbacks, right? I mean, these are real, this is real life. And so, I think there were a few things that I told myself in those moments. And the first thing I'll say is when you're going through those dark times, I think it's a common sense to feel isolated. Whether it be physical because of the lack of connection during the pandemic, maybe it's a physical sense of isolation for somebody who's immunocompromised or for other reasons. Sometimes your friendships change because when you're diagnosed with something that lasts for this long, very well-meaning, wonderful friends are also caught up in the things going on in their own lives, and they tend to move forward. And sometimes you can feel a little bit left behind. So I would say to myself over and over, especially when I was in the hospital for those couple of weeks, not able to have any loved ones there with me, is that I am by myself, but I am not alone. And there's such a profound comfort in knowing that. And I just decided that that's how I was going to see it. And I couldn't really pick up my phone and hold it for very long, but I asked a nurse to help arrange it on the tray so that if I felt up to speaking, that I could connect with somebody. I made up my mind that I was going to become friends with the nurses, friends with those who were there in physical proximity to me, and make it the best that I could make it in that situation. And the other thing is perspective. And I also love this quote by Wayne Dyer that, again, I have gone to over and over for comfort. And he says, change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. And so I tried to tell myself that this experience was happening to me it was happening for me in some way, even though in the moment it was very hard for me to see that. I can look back on that now and see very clearly that it was happening for me, that it was meant to be a turning point in my life. But I really believe that those things are happening for you should you choose to see it that way and believe that. Because you always, no matter what is happening to you physically or the trauma that you're going through, you never lose the ability to make that choice on your own perspective.
Yes, a very common theme throughout this is the power of choice, right? And how on the moments and the things we can control, when so much is out of our control, what choice we're going to make next. And I think it's really vulnerable and powerful of you to talk about that. Not only are you going through this big health hardship, that life sometimes can be a pile on, and you're going through this hardship with also trying to figure out how to take care of your family and be there for them, and they're being there for you, and same with friends, right? And then rehabbing your body, and you're in this relapse, and then the career was, a gut punch. And sometimes life can just truly be this pile-on, but that power of choice that we choose to take the next step or gain perspective or choose gratitude. And that, of course, that is not easy, and it's easier said than done, and all of those things, but you are a real testament to that. So thank you for sharing the whole story. As a, sometimes it's just the health struggle alone is worth a story and a superpower, but you add all these other things, and that's really impactful. So on the flip side, because hardships and setbacks are all around us, and even though people mean well, there's a lot of bad advice and cliches and all of those things that come out because people don't know what to say, right? And so, because there may be friends or family of other people on listening that are going through hardships, what are some of the most impactful things you were told or advice that you were given through your redefining moments?
Yeah. So for me, I think it started at a really basic level, which is something that I don't think I had done earlier in my life, but it was just to stand back and observe. And now I teach it as standing guardian of your mind, but it really is observing all of the outside world, right? I mean, imagining that you have all these antennae on top of your head that are really reacting to what you can see, taste, feel, smell, and touch in your world around you. And now it's even worse than ever, of course, with social media and information and interruptions coming at us from every which way. But it was just simply an observation of what am I taking into my mind right now that is uplifting me? And what am I taking in that is making me feel depressed, making me feel defeated in some way? And so I think that's the first step, is just to be an observer. And you know what? I made a decision to turn off the news. I had these alerts set up on my phone, right, that were going off. And it made me feel really stressed with what was going on in the world at that time. And it may sound selfish, but as I was trying to, go through this redefinition, this renewal, this healing of my body, I had to guard my own mental and physical health. And so I decided I'm no longer going to get these alerts. I also was, going online and seeking support through people that had my same diagnosis. But I'll tell you that those online groups actually made me feel very depressed instead of uplifted. And so I stopped. And then I really sought out people within the Project Athena community that I knew weren't going to sugarcoat things. These were also people that had come back from the brink. Maybe they didn't share my same diagnosis, but they shared a spirit of positivity and determination. And I said, this is the type of people I want to surround myself with. I want to engage with this community and sharing what was going on, but knowing that they weren't going to allow me to sit in it, right? To allowing yourself to feel it and feel those hard moments, but then also look ahead to your next step and your next choice. And so I would say, it's okay to let go of relationships that aren't very uplifting during those times. And, even one choices that may surprise you. But um, really, it was what helped me was the things that I was telling myself, and what I was actually blocking out, more so than even what I was taking in. That I knew was going to slow my comeback journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so with people that were in your life prior to this hardship, and then you going through your redefining yourself, um, how did you determine, okay, this person doesn't know how to support me right now, I need to either bless and release, or I do value this person, but maybe they don't know the right things to say to me, or they don't know how to support me. So like, how did you determine where to put your energy when you're already giving out so much energy to your healing and all of that?
Yes. I think it's such a great question. And I think that was the first thing was trying to get over the resentment of my body, the resentment of having so little energy to give. And I think that we can all relate to that depending on the season of life. There are times when we have more to give and there's times that we just don't. And so I think the first step for me was trying to sort of stop that resentment and just allowing the truth and allow the reality that my energy was very limited. And so, what I wanted to do was I was using that goal as a way to involve others, because I was thinking of their collective help and support of me, and knowing that I wanted to give them this gift of that mild dedication. And so by keeping that goal that was larger than me in my sight, I wanted to involve them. And I mean, I can't tell you how much, literally like 40 conversations of crying and, tears and that type of thing when I made those phone calls and wrote those letters. But it it was knowing that I could connect with people, even though that may look different than a traditional friendship where you're calling somebody every now and then and you're seeing them and you've got all these sort of normal milestones. Like, you can connect and involve others in different ways. It doesn't have to be what you've experienced as a traditional expectation. And I think, again, going back to that observer mode, I did have very well meaning friends, but some of them were maybe a little bit more adept and empathetic than others with that. And I didn't always succeed, but I tried to have empathy for them and saying that they don't understand what this is like, so I can't expect them to, right? And so but I was open and honest with them with what I could give, and I tried to be the friend that I wanted to be within the context of that energy, but not, resent that limitation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has had so many gems. I am so thankful for you sharing your superpower with us. So, can you share how listeners can connect with you and the latest and greatest in your comeback?
Thank you, Taylor. Yes, I could not be more excited. And I think as many of you will start to find out, as you stay with that goal, that burning desire that you have, and you achieve it, you will start to see that it wasn't your end point, that it was just your beginning. And that is really and truly how I feel about the best of life is yet to come. And what I am so excited about is that this journey to Zion and the health journey, I had a realization that it placed me in a really unique position to educate and inspire other survivors to create lives of joy and purpose after their setbacks, and to be their comeback coach. And so I am announcing in April a 5-day free workshop. It's going to be about an hour a day, and it's called Setback to Comeback. And it is going to be an incredible opportunity to learn how to make your own comeback, where to start, where to get the right tools to do that, and to really create a vision of what that comeback means for you. And so you can find out more information about the workshop and the new community that I'm launching called the Comeback Collective. And go out to Instagram and you can find me at Your Comeback Coach. You can access our free community with weekly videos, tips, and inspiration. I would love for you to become part of that world, or to share it with somebody who may be struggling after a medical setback and could need the type of inspiration for redefining who they are from this point forward too.
Yes. Thank you, Kelly. You are a true example of the comeback is always stronger than the setback. And I am so appreciative of your time and your story today. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Taylor, for having me, and for all of you for taking the time in your earbuds to listen to this story today. And I wish you so much strength and determination and resilience as you follow the path to your own goals as well.
All right, y'all, it is time for the quote of the episode. The quote this week is from Unknown, and when that's the case, I like to picture some badass woman saying the words of inspiration. The quote is, "Failure and setbacks are ingredients for a great success story." Take that into your week, your month, maybe even your year, and when a setback hits, know it is part of your success story. As always, thank you for being here. Thank you for being in my community. I'm so glad you showed up today, and let's go get there. Look at you, crushing it. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Tailor Made Tasty podcast. My hope is you always leave with a takeaway to implement in your own goal-crushing journey. I would love if you could take a moment to leave a review. And if you're looking for a community of goal boss badasses just like you, be sure to check out tailormadetasty.com/membership.